is a continuous process, and there is no one solution that can achieve that goal. We believe that to enact change, especially for those in underserved and underrepresented communities, there needs to be a continuum of activism and engagement with educational programs serving as its core foundation. Beginning with children in elementary school, we have the ability to light a spark of creativity, intellectual curiosity, and wonder that can last a lifetime. Continuing through middle and high school, we can support and nurture students during their formative years and increase the depth of their skills that can provide a pathway to attending one of the 400 plus colleges and universities within the United States, providing opportunities to attend, including need-based financial support, is also a critical component to helping end generational cycles of inequality. And while pursuing their creative and technical degrees, students can learn firsthand from industry leaders that share their experience, acumen, and passion through one-on-one mentoring and internships at our organization. Together, if our industry can execute this continuum, we will have invested meaningfully in the lives of the youth from these communities for more than a decade before they begin their professional journey. Diversity and inclusion make us a better industry for today, and most importantly, for tomorrow. It allows us to make better entertainment experiences that are authentic, culturally relevant, and reflective of the audiences that enjoy them. Today, we have brought together a few of our important partners who will share their organization's mission and role in this endeavor, as well as their insights on how we as an industry can continue to take these important steps together for the future. We hope that you find their work is inspiring. It is now my pleasure to turn things over to my colleague, Tony Lagans, Director of Diversity and Inclusion for 2K, who will be the moderator for today's discussion.
Thanks, Alan. It's my pleasure to be your moderator for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce my esteemed panelists today. We're going to start off with Jim Huntley. Jim Huntley is currently the professor and head of marketing at USC. Jim is a faculty advisor and he's an executive producer for USC Games Expo and a co-founding partner of PACU Gaming. Next, we have Susanna Pollock. Susanna is the president of Games for Change, which is a nonprofit that empowers creators and social innovators to drive real-world impact through games and immersive media.
Perguntei, mas eu tô morrendo, desgraça. Sabe quantas horas eu dormi ontem depois que eu
agora, eu tô falando de ontem, a hora que eu acordei.
Ô, idiota, ontem eu acordei 4h30 da manhã. Fiquei acordado o dia inteiro pra ir trabalhar. Você acha que eu ia estar funcionando na hora que te perguntei as coisas?
Acordou porque você quis. Ninguém obrigou a acordar.
Ah, vai tomar no seu... Vocês estão em live, né?
Layla is the founder of Girls Make Games, which offers a series of summer camps, workshops, and game jams designed
Não, eu já
to
tava em live já mó
inspire
cota.
the next
É que eu tava
generation
com o
of
microfone
designers,
mutado, eu tava
creators, and
falando
engineers.
mutado.
Welcome to all of you, great panelists, and thank you so much for joining our
É lógico,
important
você deixou pro
discussion
Cura fazer
today.
o bagulho.
Now, I'd like to dive right in here, and Jim, I'm going to
E você não
start
fez
with
por quê,
you.
desgraça?
In Alan's
Eu não gosto de
opening, he
você.
mentioned something that was so important, and it was really just talking about the
Deixa
increasing
eu
role
entender.
that
Você não gosta de
diversity,
mim e
equity,
deixou o
and
Cura fazer as
inclusion
coisas.
it is playing in the video game industry today.
Que eu quero
Sei
So
foder o
before we
canal.
get into the big concepts that
Caralho,
we're
tá
talking
o
about here, let's
fone
just
do
break some
negão tá
things
sumindo
down
ali.
for our viewers. Jim, can you help us understand
Tem eu e
and
o
talk
Cura ali,
about
qual de nós é
equity
qual?
and
Por
diversity
que esses caras
and
fazem
why
esses
it's so
recortes?
important in the
Essas
conversation about the video game
Pior
industry
que o
today?
recorte de todos tá igual, é como se todos
Absolutely.
estivessem no mesmo lugar.
Equity and diversity has been a challenge for the gaming industry since its inception. It hasn't really changed
dá pra ver que
very
eles
much over
fizeram
time. But I think
o
the biggest
bagulho
change
bem,
people are seeing in the last 2 to 3
bem
years
nas
are
coxas,
the lack
porque
of it in the
não
modern
tem nenhum
era
croquis ali,
and the
fundativo.
rationale that
Eu
there's
tô
no
até
excuse
meio
behind not
arrependido
having better equity and
negócio
diversity
aqui.
in the industry from here on
Tô
out. So
achando que não vai
what I
ser
like
o que a gente
about
achou que
working
ia
with
ser.
companies like Take-Two and some other companies have reached out to me about
Menino,
an initiative we started
Eu
called
não.
the Gerald A. Lawson
Eu não.
Endowment
Eu posso
Fund.
pôr minha cama,
is
já
that
que tá aí. Você só
companies are
joga
now
no
looking to
só coisa, o
invest
S, não,
in
o
getting
mestre dos
more
disfarces.
diversity in their ranks and getting more stories.
Se foda aí, quando eu como na
I
live,
appreciate
eu
that.
faço
That's
do
great
meus pulos, dá
conversation
o
there.
selo.
So So let's talk about just kind of the inequities and why is it so important to have these conversations.
Mano, criticar é fácil, né, cara? Vai fazer, tá ligado?
Right mindset to understand what's available
Tá a
for them
galera
as
de todos
majors
os
in this
estúdios
industry.
da
Just talk to
aí,
us a
mas
little
não
bit
tem
about that.
Rockstar, velho.
Absolutely. So a lot of what
Né?
we're focusing on from a USC Games perspective
Deixa eu imaginar,
is making
desde a hora
sure that
que
students of
começou, eles estão
color,
falando
Black
essas
and
coisas com
Indigenous
essa cara
students in
de
particular,
sapo
because
gordo.
they
Acabou
have
de
the
começar.
least amount of representation within our industry out of all the
Eu tô
various
tentando entender
demographic
por que
groups.
tá todo mundo
We've been
ali e
focusing
o
on
da
scholarships,
Rockstar
but
não tá.
the challenge that we have, and I think the
Porque não tem
challenge that
GTA 6,
society and the industry has, is it starts earlier than that.
Mas
There's a
tem GTA
phrase from, I can't remember who attribute to, there's a phrase that he used that I remember saying, the inequities of our past pay dividends into the future. And that sticks with me because the reality is if you don't have a great opportunity or access to computer science labs and specialized education in grade school and high school and junior high school, the odds of you having a great portfolio piece when it comes time to apply to a program like ours puts you at a deficit. And if that deficit keeps rolling on into the future, generation after generation, rolling on the gap between the ability to get into some of
Volta a
these
dormir,
slides,
falou.
Volta a dormir,
Melhor disposição.
how do we get students some opportunity from grade school? Like, how do we make sure they can see this as an option? Because when I, as a Black man, get in front of a small group of, grade school students, and I say I work in the video game industry, you can see the eyes just their minds explode because they've never seen anyone like me and the videos they see on YouTube or other visitors to their classes, to their seminars. So it's important to show that we have a presence here, but it's also important to make sure that the students who look like us, who are 20 years, 30 years, 40 years behind us, also have the opportunities that we didn't in some cases.
O título tá certo, esse aqui, Square Enix presentes
industry.
Yes, thank you so much for your insight. So important there. Susanna, that really kind of speaks to a lot of the great work that you're doing in helping to reach this underserved community. Can you talk about the work that Games for Change is doing?
Tá aqui a Square Enix presente React.
Our mission, as you said earlier, is to empower game designers and social innovators, right? To use games for social change. And we see our work with younger people as really inspiring the next generation, right? And so just what Jim was saying, like we are going as young, we're going as young as sixth grade, sometimes fifth grade, but trying to give young people mostly Entitle I schools. So those are schools that qualify for free lunches, which often are representing the underserved communities. An opportunity to dive in deeply into this gaming industry, this experience they all love to do, and help them become creators of this content, not just consumers. And we've been finding that the program we've been running, called the Games for Change Student Challenge, we've been running it for the past 6 years. We've reached over 30,000 young people in middle and high school. And we not only give them an opportunity to learn how to make games, but we also combine that with civic engagement. So they have to think about how games can help make their communities better. So right from the start, we want to empower them to think about this really important medium, not only as something they love to do, but they actually can
make. Mas já apresentou algum jogo ou só tem esses bocó falando?
Important 21st century
Você sentou aqui e eles começaram a falar. Só perdeu o primeiro cara que anunciou esses caras.
But what we really hope to see happen is that they see a future for themselves.
Tá parecendo uma reunião de investidores essa merda.
Part of our program, an important part of it, is this idea of mentoring, and mentoring from near peers and also from people from the community. So as Jim says, it's so important they see themselves in the people that are coming to speak to them. So when we're in Los Angeles, for example, we can reach out to USC Games for game design students to come and speak to the kids, that we can bring people in from Riot or Activision or from Take-Two to come in and say, yes, this is what I do, and this is something for you. We do the same thing in New York and working in Atlanta and Detroit, and I can tell you that students are coming back year on year, and we're seeing them use this program as like their college essay, or they're building their portfolio. And I love the idea that, if we can we can get to them at a young age. They
Só
can spend their
reunião
summers with
firma aí, por
Layla
enquanto.
at Girls Make Games, and then they can go on and apply to college, you know, and we're talking about this pipeline or you know, this pathway for them. And so that's that role and what we hope to inspire.
I love what you said there, Suzanne. There's so many little nuggets that you just pulled out there. The different avenues you can have and career pathways there are in the gaming industry. Just the activity that you can have in terms of having mentorship and role models and representation, and just, you know, having good gamers out there. So there's so many things that you talked about that I want to hit on. Let's just pull Layla into this conversation and just talk about the idea of mentorship and representation. Layla, talk about the workshops and the summer programs that you offer to girls. How does that help to increase the representation and the mentorship aspects that we've talked about?
Thanks so much for having me. I was on mute. This is 2021, still going on mute. But like Susanna said, I think it's really important to kind of pass that baton on. And I think we see the summer after summer having created a place that's, you know, for girls. We get this question a lot. Why do you need a space that's just for girls? There's so many programs out there that are open to everyone. But I think it's just so important to create that space because, like Jim talked about, it's so important to see people who are like yourselves. For many of the girls that come to camp, this is their first time walking into a room full of girls who love video games. You know, they've been so accustomed to kind of being the only girl on their robotics team, or the only girl that went to a coding camp with their brother. And the girl who's fighting her brothers for you know, the Xbox controller. So those are very common themes and stories, and I think it's important to kind of tie in not just the mentorship, but also the community. It's very important to walk into a room and feel like you're not an outsider. And the best way to do that is to show many more faces that look just like you. It's really validating to walk away, not just with the technical skills, but to feel like these are people that I'm gonna, you know, kind of encounter in 10, 15 years and we'll be like professionals, because right now we're just kids making games, but we'll be professionals in a few years. And 7 years out for Girls Make Games, we're finally starting to see, you know, these girls kind of make plans together to go to college, and this year, I would say, like, the first time we got in, like, dozens of emails from families saying, you know, my daughter is now thinking of college, and how do we get this portfolio going? How do we set that up? So I think touching on Jim's point too, there's so many challenges that, you know, people have to go through just to get everything right. You shouldn't have to rely on luck so much. So if you look at the women who are now excelling and thriving in the industry, and you ask them their stories, so many things had to go right in their lives to finally end up in the industry. Many of whom ended up there accidentally, like me and even Tony. I think Tony and I touched on that earlier. But it shouldn't have to be luck or accident. We can actually intentionally create these pipelines. And I think it requires all of us working together, like everyone in this room, talking about what we're doing and how do we pass our students on from, you know, we start as young as 8, getting them onto the programs and then passing them on to the student challenge and then on to USC and then finally on to the industry. I think that would be, that's basically the magic formula to solving the problem that we're talking about today.
Yes, thank you for hitting on that pipeline challenge and actually solution. You really clearly laid it out there for us. I really, really enjoy that. And something else you mentioned is just like really opening this world of gaming to new, diverse pool and a spectrum of gamers.
Mano, não tem nem o logo da Rockstar até agora ali, velho. Cadê o presidente da Rockstar? Não tá aí, mano. Tá todo mundo fazendo. Tem Private Division, tem 2K, tem todo mundo.
Specifically for the gay gaming professionals, can you talk about how the representation and widening the spectrum of what gaming professional looks like, and how your company and your role really accomplishes that?
Sure. So we all share is trying to disrupt some of those mental gymnastics, socioeconomic gymnastics, social gymnastics that young women, people of color, indigenous people, neurodiverse people need to do in order to be as great as they are.
Uau, agora tem mais 2 caras bonitos junto com um monte de gente bonita, velho.
So of hearing, you know, what Layla's speaking to, of a cohort, right, that treats each other as default, and where are we going to go
live de modelo, achei que era de game.
Collectively. The program, you know, Jim's putting in place, right?
A nossa
Rafa até tomou banho, né?
Quê?
Aparecer na live. Você, Rafa, tomou até banho pra aparecer na live.
Tomei porra nenhuma.
Pra quê?
Eu troquei camiseta, a calça é do pijama.
Ei, ô Léo.
Essa calça é
Eu
pijama?
não uso pijama, tá ligado? Aí eu levanto, a minha também é do pijama, só vê a trombinha.
A calça do pijama, eu uso essa calça pra sair.
Que nem
Minha calça de sair é desse jeito.
Você não viu a meia, tá com rombo no varguei que eu não consigo.
Parecia ruim ver tanta gente feia, agora parece que piorou.
Ai, que sono, velho.
Me acordaram pra isso.
Eu não tô com sono, porque ontem depois que terminou aquela lá, eu fui dormir e acordei só hoje.
Antes de ontem eu fiz a merda de fazer isso, depois que nós jogou Sabadão, depois que nós jogou Fortnite, eu fui dormir, acordei 4h30 da manhã, lascou comigo.
Nossa, velho.
Não, sabe qual que é a parte boa?
Não tem.
Ó, Cora, estraga a minha piada. Tá me devendo uma piada.
Parte ruim é que não tem nem cerveja hoje.
É, tem nem cerveja, como assim?
Aqui tem, sabe qual é pra você?
Ah, falou, bebum. A gente tá falando de cerveja, Léo, não é leite fermentado, não.
Isso aqui tá em falta hoje.
Olha que bonito que tá escrito ali em cima, Mr. Lei, ali, ó.
Gaming profissional. Gay?
Não. Gaming.
Gay gaming? É, só desse.
Profissionais dos jogos gay, ué. Esse segurando.
Isso?
Tava bem na frente da sua foto.
E a outra é, tipo, a menina que faz garota dentro do jogo, é isso? Girls Make Games? Ou garotas fazem jogos?
Garotas fazem jogos.
Meu amigo.
Esse bagulho que fica pipocando na tela, né? Rodando, velho.
Né, cara, negócio zoado.
Não, e bem merda, ela passa em cima do fundo dos caras. Nem eu consigo ser tão ruim assim.
É o que tenta, né?
Olha lá, o Pedro, cadê a cura na live, na cam, pôs paletó pra lavar? É que o dono pegou. O dono acordou, catou o cura enchendo de murro.
Ai, ai.
And so Take-Two has been part of our challenge since the beginning, offering scholarships to our grand prize winners. And I can tell you that that's a motivator for kids to participate.
Tava tão bom.
Not just because there's a scholarship at the end, but just because Take-Two is part of it.
Agora alguém estragou minha piada.
Devolveu a piada.
É, tá tirando, eu faço piada, o cura vem querer roubar, mano.
Querer ser mais engraçado que eu na minha live.
Né? Faz eu puxar minha live. Puxa minha live, depois faz eu puxar de volta pra roubar minha piada. Cadê sua webcam, Cura? Já converte aí, pá. Você não é importante. Ai, que cuzão.
Games for change.
Yes, I love that.
E a turma do lado só serve pra mexer a cabeça e concordar. Vamos lá também. Rafa. Concorda. Isso, obrigado. Não, a cara do Rafa de empolgação.
É muito bom. A cara de quem ia ver GTA, mas tava no GT Troll. GT Trolho.
A quem achou que ia ver GTA, achou que era do jogo, é GTA de game.
Eu achei que ia ter pelo menos um basquete lá, mas nem isso, velho.
Caramba!
Eu estaria feliz se passasse do basquete agora.
Eu ia ficar feliz se passasse algum jogo. Não precisa nem ser do basquete.
GT.
It'd be
A
that
gente
simple.
tá olhando a live certo?
Our business is more
A
successful
gente tá olhando a live
if
certo.
there is more
Tá.
of this.
O David Jones tá com a mesma cara de trouxa
And
lá na
that's
live dele.
about
Olha que bonito o GGP do cara ali atrás, ó, GGP.
which are two different things. There's lots of
Cadê o da
excitement
GDM? E eu com cara de
when
otário,
you're
só aqui, ó.
value, in spite of the circumstances. They're valuable, right? There's a difference between saying you're of value and that's a business goal in itself. And I think that's the corporate.
Tá o
That's
maluco com sono.
the real change, because it used to be, I mean, just real talk. it
Tiozão
used
lá
to be
tá
about
com. Só esses dois falé, é isso mesmo?
and be like, oh, you're able to thrive under this duress.
O Lyric que tava assistindo, ele deixou só a voz de fundo e tá procurando o
Right,
jogo
you are
na
actually
Steam.
who we are, so we are going to
Caramba.
cultivate you.
Olha isso.
O-
Tem umas missões no GTA, no Fortnite, sabe?
Fortnite.
What we sound
Fazer?
right? And so
Tá abrindo
as the
aqui.
lever moves more towards that, right? The same way, like I have
Não, eu
values,
vi aquela menina lá no canto da esquerda que tá quase dormindo.
Só
Ela
ela?
tá igual o Rafa. Tá igual o Rafa. Ela tá olhando pro vazio, olhando a imensidão do universo.
O cara ali, ó. O cara ali de camisa polo, tava esticando os braços, a outra tá mais morta que viva.
O David Jones aqui, todo mundo na esperança de que vai acabar a palestra e vai ter game. Já tá com 30k de nego assistindo ele lá nessa esperança.
Olha lá o pesadelo, bora forte, pesadelo, não fala isso, tô abrindo.
Você pode me chamar agora que eu não vou entrar lá no grupo, pesadelo.
É, não me chame.
But like you guys have said, it takes time. It takes starting earlier in the pipeline. I love that you just call that out. What other things can corporations do that are just different than what we've been doing in the past, perhaps? What would you recommend?
I would even add to what Gordon just said, the looking
A tia que tá com óculos maior que a cara dela. Talvez é que as três são com óculos maior que a quatro. Meu Deus, só brotando mulher com óculos.
The social justice marches from last summer. And really,
que deu na turma de achar que agora a graça é fazer óculos
this issue, this giant generational issue, as a business problem. What would you do? And that flipped the light switch on for me. Well, of course, like any business problem, what are my challenges? I've got.
Eu tô olhando pro Rafa, o Rafa tá mexendo demais na cabeça, tá com cara que ele tá jogando.
Eu tô procurando alguma explicação aqui, porque
a explicação dele tá dentro da Steam.
Olha lá o pesadelo, tio Phil, verdade, o tio Phil.
Hey, here's a check and good luck with charity X. It's going to be more.
Ai, caramba.
This is what we're hoping to see. Let's measure along the way and see if we're seeing progress on that. And it's the measurement of progress and adjusting in real time based on the data.
Cheguei na idade do exame de próstata, espero que o médico seja
the gap start to close in a meaningful way and be able to point out to other people in the industry like, hey, this is what we.
Apesar que antes da morte não tá tão diferente assim também não.
Up and really had an impact on society as a whole. That
mindset. Ela colocou tio Phil depois da morte. Antes da morte não tá tão diferente disso não.
Quase certeza esse cara é algum MC de funk no Brasil.
Girls make game. Ela, rapaz, se mulher pode fazer jogo, por que nós não pode jogar?
Pie is not a fixed size. I think by including
tá sendo torturado aqui, ó.
pie gets bigger. So it's not a fixed size that we're trying to all get a piece of.
A feia, caramba, essa tela cheia de referência.
Creators of this medium, we actually expand the medium, expanded beyond just entertainment. And I think that speaks really heavily.
Tô achando que tinha gente que já sabia que não ia ser, velho, porque o DN nem tá fazendo live disso, eles estão fazendo esquenta da live da Capcom.
I can see Susanna kind of
live da Capcom, cara.
6:30.
Coming in as an outsider to the games industry, I was just kind of blown away that, oh my god, you can do so much. Like 9 out of 10 kids play
achando que os
video
caras já
games.
têm informação
Not
de que
9
é uma
out of 10
merda.
boys, 9 out of 10 kids. We're talking about literally changing perceptions and inspiring and educating generation after generation.
Tô aqui no
And
lobby.
yet that power rests in the hands of those
Eu deixo essa porra aqui aberta
when you
aqui,
think
se
about it,
aparecer
not just
alguma
from a
coisa,
corporate
você dá alt
responsibility, but
tab.
as a social responsibility, like
Mas vai deixar rodando, vocês estão falando? Ou vai jogar Fortnite online?
Então, eu deixo aqui se aparecer. Não, abre a live do Fortnite. Se aparecer, você dá alt tab e mostra
Nossa, não precisa falar
GTA 6.
Só falar duas vezes.
That gets lost. Like I think there's a big dichotomy between these are people that are doing good and these are people.
Vai querer deixar nossas cães aqui do lado ou vai querer
we have to work together and everyone does kind of go between what's good for me and what's good for
Cura vai assistindo aí pra nós, Cura?
Thank you for bringing that concept up, Layla. The
Aí o Cura falou, tô baixando o
all
Fortnite.
community members in this pipeline, and we have to be active, deliberate
Cura
in our
dormiu já.
processes, in our system.
Ah, é que quando fala de jogar o Cura sobe.